America's Financial Apocalypse arguably is the most important, relevant book, investment book ever written, because it's so comprehensive and tells so much of what's going on. Not to mention, it gave specific ways to make a shitload of money. Folks, that's why I say, really, unless you're really kind of high level on various areas, you're not going to understand the true relevance of the work. You're not going to realize that my analysis of U.S. trade policy was beyond cutting edge. It was beyond amazing. It's miraculous, actually. Okay, you're not going to really realize that. 20 years ago, nobody in the world wrote about how that was just... Folks, I tied that into America's wealth and income disparity. I'm the guy that explained it all, how the outsourcing was causing the destruction of middle-class America through not just the jobs being transplanted, sent overseas, but you have to understand Wall Street's involved in that stuff. They're not just sending the facilities to China and to other parts of the world. You're also getting Wall Street, and I didn't talk about this in too much detail, but I've written about it, I've talked about it since that time, and I wrote about it a little bit. But in terms of when Wall Street's the problem. Wall Street's destroyed capitalism. That's the problem. See, Wall Street is also, and I wrote about this in the chapter on the pension crisis, you've got these parasites that come in, like Carl Icahn, right? And Paul Singer, Elliott Management, just to name the two. Corporate raiders that come in and they'll do a leverage buyout. They'll buy out a company, take it private or whatever. And the first thing they do is they eliminate the fucking pensions. You don't hear about this. I wrote about this stuff. This is why America's in this situation. That's why I'm saying this book is probably the most relevant investment book ever written, because it exposes the entire fucking system of why things are the way they are in America and now in the Western world, because all this shit gradually has trickled down over to Canada, over to Australia, over to Europe. Why America? And I talked about the healthcare system. This is what I'm saying. People don't have a fucking clue. America is completely fucked up. And people don't know. And they've been brainwashed to think that universal healthcare is bad. Okay. And in fact, U.S. healthcare, America's scam healthcare system, is actually destroying the universal healthcare systems of the world. It's actually destroying those universal healthcare systems such that they are becoming more privatized gradually. I'm not going to get into why and how that's going on, but I know exactly what's going on. You're never going to hear about this. When you look at all these things, folks, okay, people don't have a fucking clue what's going on. They have no idea. I'm the guy that knows. I'm the only guy that really knows. I wrote about this shit. That book, even though it's written in plain fucking English, people are too fucking ignorant to even understand it back then. Even today, only today, I think, people, once I guide them to what's going on, can they even understand? I'm talking about the comprehensive nature of that book. Why do you think I wrote throughout the book about the trade policy? Why do you think I wrote? The subtitle of my book is How to Survive the Next Great Depression. You understand? The next Great Depression. And I actually argued that America's downturn began with the collapse of the dot-com bubble. You could argue that. That's when things began. And of course, the dot-com collapse was, a few years after NAFTA was passed. everything changed. NAFTA was the beginning of the end. Okay? North American Free Trade Agreement. That ushered in the globalization scheme, all this open trade. It was all from the beginning a scheme to enrich the wealthy in corporate America and the other big corporations at the expense of the worker. At the same time, they have their ignorant, fraudulent, moronic economic hacks who want to tell everyone that it's a great thing. Globalization is great. Open trade is great. It's lifted so many people out of poverty. It's a goddamn lie. None of these motherfuckers will ever go up against me. You put me at the same table as any of these guys. I've already shown my research from that one book alone has already been proven to be superior to the analysis of three Nobel Prize winners in economics, by the way. Think about it. I don't focus on economics. I wrote one fucking book and I destroyed their fucking life's work. I've surpassed their life's work in one fucking book. What's that tell you? It tells you a lot about me, and it tells you a lot about the people that they have and the economics establishment. The entire economics establishment has been specifically designed and maintained to support the criminality of Wall Street and corporate America. That's fact. Write that down. You know, this is the reality. Folks, this is what's going on. This is what they don't want you to know. Okay? Nobody in the world wrote about the wealth and income disparity wasn't even a fucking topic, essentially. Not much of one anyway, until after the Occupy Wall Street. If you don't believe me, look it up. If you don't think I know what the fuck is going on, you don't think I know the details of everything that's happened over the past 20 years in terms of even in terms of like who's done this and who's been positioned here. I've been focused on all this shit because this is my fucking life that was put in jeopardy. Literally, by the way. The wealth and income disparity wasn't even a major topic in the academic world of economics until after Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street opened the eyes of these fucking idiot economists. And so they started writing about it. If you don't know Occupy Wall Street, you better go do some research. That was the only chance America had, the world had, because that Occupy Wall Street movement expanded to Occupy LA, Occupy Oakland, Occupy Dallas, Occupy Miami. It went all around the U.S. eventually, and it went around the world. Okay? Because of the financial crisis, they were protesting Wall Street, the bankers. That was the only chance the world had to defeat this criminal mafia. And I'm talking here corporate America, Wall Street, and our politicians are included because they're all bought off by the corporate interests, by Wall Street. Okay? And once some of the people from the Occupy movement started making posters and kind of walking around with things, and you can probably take a look if you go on Google, and you type in Occupy Wall Street, and then you type in something like who runs the media, and then you type in images. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, once the Occupy movement, some people started to realize, hey, who runs our media? Oh, by the way, who runs Wall Street? Who runs the Federal Reserve? That's when the Occupy movement got infiltrated and shut down. It quietly disappeared overnight. Okay? And you had federal agents out at all these Occupy movements undercover. That's fact. They were monitoring everything because they were worried about. You think the whole January 6th thing was a big deal. You have no idea what could have happened to America. The Occupy. You had the whole fucking country up, and you got to understand, you had millions of Americans lost their home, lost their job, lost their retirement because of Wall Street fraud, and it wasn't labeled as fraud. No one from Wall Street was even investigated for fraud. They got away with fucking fraud. And they got their bonuses, they got everything, and they fucked everybody. This is what happens. This is modern. This is the modern world, folks. This is how the modern financial system works now. Okay, this is how the mafia controls everything. The Federal Reserve pumps out all this credit, makes all these bubbles. And in the meantime, Wall Street's making all kinds of money, doing all kinds of deals, this and that. Right? When the bubble blows up, you lose. Okay? You lose your job. There's layoffs. Your retirement account blows up. You might lose your house. Wall Street doesn't lose. You see? It's a fucking scam. It's done deliberately. They make more money in the bubble, and they don't face the downside. There's no downside when things blow up. It's the Main Street that absorbs all the losses. This is the scam you're not hearing about. Okay? And this is what happened to a large degree back in the 2008 financial crisis. So many things happened at so much severity that people were pissed. And the U.S. faced a major problem. A major fucking problem. This was the closest America came to, civil war or major problem. And because it failed, America's done. They're never going to come back to that situation now. It's not going to happen. I mean, the most you're going to get is, Donald Trump, who's part of the fucking problem, and Alex Jones and these scammers convincing people that the election was stolen. Think about it. Okay, the election was stolen. Does it matter? Does it matter? Trump versus Biden, what's the difference? I mean, does it matter? So you got Biden in there. The Biden crime family. You've got the Biden boy who was a druggie, made a little money because his name is Biden, doing some deals in China, bought a gun, lied on his application, cheated on taxes. Okay, not good. Is that a huge deal? Not really. When you compare it to the Trump crime family. How come you never heard about the Trump crime family? I mean, you got Donald Trump, his grifty, greasy, fucking weasel kids. Don Jr., Eric, from fucking before he even got in the office, they were there fucking looking to launch businesses, and now they're all involved in crypto, making fucking billions, launching fucking meme coins and all types of fucking shit, launching a phone service, a mobile phone service now. Any way they can do to make money. Sleazy motherfucking scumbags, right? You got people in that cult, in the Trump cult, willing to riot and storm Capitol Hill because they thought that Donald Trump was cheated. They believed him. Think about that. Even though Donald Trump, he didn't drain the swamp, he brought more motherfucking parasites into that swamp. Did he not? Yeah, he did. Look around Trump, see who Trump is surrounded by. Who is Donald Trump surrounded by? His own fucking brethren. Which is why, by the way, he went and attacked Iran. Which is what Israel's been wanting now America to do for fucking decades. Okay? So you can get Americans, the dumbass Americans who think they know what's going on because they did their research. Because they listen to Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and Joe Rogan and that circle jerk of fucking scammers. Right? Or they listen to MSNBC. Right? And CNN. They're willing to tear down Capitol Hill because their leader, their supreme leader, they think had the election stolen from him. But guess what? They're not willing to go and tear down Capitol Hill because the Washington politicians have committed treason for decades. They've sold this country. They've sold it out to foreigners. They've sold out the jobs. They've allowed corporate America to send those fucking jobs overseas. They've taken the incomes, the livelihood of millions of Americans, and they sent it to China and to Brazil and to other places in the name of corporate profits. That's treason. That's treason. Economic security is national security. It's treason. Okay? If I'm running the show, I'd take every single Washington politician from the past 3 decades and put them in prison for life. And they're getting off there. Because otherwise I could argue the electric chair. Okay? Same thing with healthcare. No one's going to riot Capitol Hill, even though you got a healthcare fucking mafia that's the number one source every year in America of personal bankruptcies. Never mind that medical bankruptcy does not exist outside of America. More than half of all personal bankruptcies every year are due to the failure to pay medical bills. You got the most expensive, most inefficient, most error-prone healthcare system in the world, run by Wall Street. And it's only that way because our Washington officials got bought off. Criminal motherfuckers. So think about that. They protest for Trump, and they don't protest for themselves because they don't know what the fuck is going on. Because the media is not going to tell them what's going on. You understand? That's the reality. Anybody out there, folks, contact people. Don't you think what I have to say is extremely relevant and should be heard? You're not dealing with some guy who's got little opinions. I'm an expert in healthcare. I wrote a book on healthcare. I worked in healthcare IT telemedicine 25 fucking years ago. Did you see what Grok had to say about my healthcare analysis from America's Financial Apocalypse alone? Not from my healthcare book even. I haven't even done the healthcare book. Incredible insight, foresight. What it said. Okay? See, nobody out there wants you to hear the truth. That's why no one wants to talk to me. They want to make money. They want to pretend like they're giving you the truth. They want to make money. Okay? Because they don't want to hear from me. Because if I'm telling you how fucked up America's healthcare system is, then they're going to love that. It's kind of like Alex Jones. Oh yeah, he wants to interview me. Until he reads in my book how, yeah, I'm saying buy gold. And then I'm saying, buy the ETFs, not the physical gold. Oh, that's not good. So if I'm talking about how bad the healthcare system is, you're going to have guys that want to, oh yeah, I want to have you on the show so they can push their fucking advertisers, their nutritional supplements bullshit. But then they're going to hear me talk about how the nutritional supplements industry is a complete fucking scam. They don't want to hear me. You see, because they can't make money. I'm just telling the truth. You see? You can't even compare the credibility in terms of the therapeutic effectiveness of our healthcare system versus nutritional supplements. Nutritional supplements is a total fucking scam on so many levels. Everyone who promotes nutritional supplements is a scammer, by the way. I've told you that before. It's a golden fucking rule. Write it the fuck down. They're all scammers. Joe Rogan nutritional supplements fraudster, Tim Ferriss, right? You got Dr. Berg, the chiropractor on ScamTube, with his probably 14 million followers now, another Scientologist promoting just complete horseshit. The guy's a complete fraud. He's got a little cult. Everyone believes this bullshit. He's a complete fraud. And he acts like he's telling you the truth. He's not. You got to look at things closely. He's a complete fraudster. All these people, folks, anyone promoting nutritional supplements is a fucking scam artist. Write that the fuck down. That's why they don't want to hear from me. Because they have to make money some way. Right? They got to have their angle. You see? I wrote about all this shit. Why is it? I mean, you know what's funny? 20 years ago, I remember, seeing, Hyundai and Kia kind of entering the U.S. markets. I mean, they'd been there for, I don't know how many years. I'm sure quite a few years. But 20 years ago, Kia and Hyundai were still pretty new. I don't think, you would see who would drive those cars 20 years ago. It's like fucking ghetto people. Right? It's the ghetto people. Who's driving Kia and Hyundai now? Who's driving in America? Who's driving Kia and Hyundai now? Anybody? It's not restricted to ghetto people now. It's kind of like, a lot of like middle class people are driving Kia and Hyundai, are they not? You know why? Anybody know why? Anybody know why? That kind of tells you what's happened to the living standards in middle class America. They've kind of gradually gone down. You see? So, when Kia and Hyundai really, it was kind of the lower end, kind of the welfare fucking crew. Now it's more mainstream. You could argue, have Kia and Hyundai improved their quality? Okay, they have to some extent. But come on, are they better than Honda and Toyota? Of course not. I don't need a job. I've retired for 10 years. What are you talking about? What do I care? If you want a job, you don't fucking leave the West. It's just fucking stupid. Okay? And as bad as American healthcare is, in terms of the cost and all the bullshit, when you're talking about the high level healthcare, medical care, America's the place. There's other places too. Germany. There's many places that are, when you're talking about triple bypass surgery, right? Advanced cancer treatment, right? ICU. You want Western hospitals for that shit. You don't want to be in fucking Thailand. People in Thailand, they're going to tell you, oh, healthcare here is better than America. They're fucking stupid. You understand? It's a great example kind of showing you, it's kind of flimsy. I would call it flimsy evidence. But for me, from what I know and what I've seen, I would say it's completely credible for what's happened to middle class. More of middle class has kind of come down a bit, right? So they've had to lower their standards. So they bought Kias and Hyundais, which are, they're less expensive. Okay? They're not the same as Honda and Toyota. It's just that simple. That's what's happened. Right? So now it's a normal thing for someone, I think 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you see somebody in a Kia and a Hyundai, you're like, oh, this person's low income. Now, if you see them, I don't know that people think that. I don't think they do, at least not to the extent as before. Why? Because it's more mainstream, right? Kia and Hyundai entered a part of that market that filled a need. You see? It filled a need. And, I wrote in the data in my Wealth and Income Disparity Treatment in the Apocalypse book 20 years ago. I showed how the standards have gone down. The productivity gains that have been made in the U.S. over the past decades have, for the most part, not gone to the middle class. They've not gone, it's not been a commensurate sharing. It's gone to corporate America and the wealthy who own the companies. You see? That's the problem. That's the reality. That's what you're not hearing. It's fact. I mean, it's fact. Why do you think you've got all the drug problem now? The drugs, all the casinos. 30 years ago, they didn't have any fucking casinos in America. Vegas, Atlantic City, Indian reservations. Right? Now, they're everywhere. Fucking casinos everywhere. Why? Casinos pop up when opportunities disappear. And casinos bring a few things. Drugs, illegal sex, and crime. They never improve a place. Okay? Oh, yeah, the wealth and income gap is, of course, it's a worldwide trend. Because why? You got to understand what's happened in the world, okay? It's Wall Street. It's corporate America. Europe, 30 years ago, was not really on the same plan. What happened was, after the dot-com collapsed, the dot-com bubble in 2001, there was no business for Wall Street. That's when they really flooded over to Europe. Let me just tell you what happened. Long time ago, well, depending upon when you think a long time ago is, in Europe, you couldn't, there was essentially, not completely, but essentially people didn't really get mortgages. It was kind of rare. It wasn't like a standard thing anyway, right? It wasn't a standard thing like it is in America. Okay, you know why? Before they launched the EMU, okay, before they launched the EMU, the European Monetary Union, the single currency, that changed everything. You didn't really have mortgages. You had them, but they weren't, it wasn't the same. Okay? You didn't have mortgage-backed securities. You didn't have that old market. You had bank loans, basically, right? It was a different system. Because mortgages weren't that common. In America, in Australia, in Canada, you buy a home, you get a mortgage. Boom. It's common, right? A few decades ago in Europe and beyond, and before that, mortgages weren't that common. Why? Because houses were passed down from parents to children, right? Houses were passed down a lot more. Okay? Once the EMU was launched, after the dot-com blow up, Wall Street really ramped up everything, focused on Europe, and created a consumer economy, consumer-driven economy. Okay? That's when you began to see mortgages more normal in Europe. Why? Well, because they told Europe, hey, look, they told the officials, listen, here's the game. You want economic productivity, right? You got all these houses here that have been standing for 100 years. That's not how it works. How you make the real money is you level these houses and you build either new homes, they're more expensive, and in some cases, even better, you build high-rise condos. Why? Well, the city gets more property taxes. You see, so you convince people that selling their land to buy a condo is a great deal. It's cool to live in a condo, right? So they transplanted this whole fucking system from America to Europe. And you have Europe where you see today, it's becoming closer and closer to America. Mortgages are very common, right? They're demolishing homes, building new ones, right? That's economic development, right? You see? So where I'm getting with that is that system, as you've seen Europe the way it was before, and of course, at the same time, you've seen this gradual intersection of all these countries through these EU policies, right? My point is that before all this shit began to happen, before 2000, Europe was seen more kind of as a socialist region. The countries are socialist. What does that mean? Well, in America, they've told people that socialism is really bad, and actually it's not. Socialism, free healthcare, free education, right? You pay for it in your taxes, but hell, take a look at the tax rate in America versus Europe. Tax rates in Europe aren't much higher than America unless you're looking at countries like Belgium. Okay? It's not much higher, but they get free health care. And of course, as I said before, America's healthcare system, because it's the leading edge, is actually destroying the universal healthcare system around the world. Eventually, you're going to have no universal healthcare, essentially, around the world. I'm not going to get into that, but so what's happened is because Europe is now more like America. See, Europe and America have been converging. Europe has been coming closer to America's so-called free market system, which is complete horseshit. But Europe has been coming closer to America in terms of the economics and business aspects, and America's becoming closer, has been approaching Europe's kind of like social policies. So as Europe is now much closer to America's economic system, what's happened is that you're seeing more European companies are starting to resemble things from corporate America. And so essentially what I'm talking about is that, yes, that's so what you're seeing is, yes, a wealth and income disparity in Europe more so than what you saw a few decades ago because of the way the corporations are now, you see, in Europe versus how they were before. Wealth and income disparity is due to corporate America. It's due to these big corporations. That's why. They're the ones that are, they're sucking in all the productivity. They're fucking the workers. And, you know, for the longest time in America, you've seen, and of course, labor unions they have a really bad reputation in America. Why? Because the media gives you that bad reputation. They focus on labor unions that have been subjugated by bad players. So, for instance, the UAW, that labor union has always been shit. You know, and I don't know the details, but I would have to believe that there are controlling forces that make sure to put people there that kind of make it look bad. I'm not saying those people that are running it think they're actually doing that on purpose. They just put incompetent people there. Okay, so they create examples to make labor unions look bad, right? So that the media always has examples, and so Americans, oh, labor unions are terrible. Oh, it's communism, and it's just not true. You see, it's the same way the media works with healthcare. You know, they'll always look at extreme examples, and they won't tell you the details. They'll focus on Canada, and Canada's a whole different situation. They'll never talk about Western Europe. They won't even talk about the healthcare in Japan. They don't want to show you like successful universal healthcare. They want to just go to the worst. So my point is this: America union membership is probably 10-11%, and most of that is government or companies like AT&T, Verizon, kind of dinosaurs. It's whittled down. Canada, I haven't looked in several years. I did articles on this a few years ago on my website. Canada's exposure, labor unions, I think it was like more than 40%. Maybe it's down now. Europe is probably similar, right? So typical American that's been fucking dumbed down. Oh, labor union. Oh, you're communist. You see? And the fact is, labor unions have never been more important in the world for workers. Why? Because of free trade. A system that's always looking for lower costs without any regard for the workers. Labor unions are fucking important. Never been more important. But they continue to disappear in America. So the last leg in Europe and Canada is their labor unions to protect those jobs. I've told this story before many times. When they have a strike in Europe, okay, and eventually this is going to go away. It won't happen anymore eventually. And you'll know the beginning of the end is coming. If GM lays workers off and they start a strike, they're striking against the company because they've laid workers off. What happens in America? The workers that are laid off go outside and picket. They hold up their signs, they stop traffic, they try and, right? What happens in Europe? When GM, Ford, whomever, lay off employees, let's say they lay off 500 employees in a plant of 5,000. You know what they do in Europe? All the employees lock themselves into the fucking facility. Okay? They're all part of the game. They're all unified. That's powerful. That delivers results. They don't do that in America. Americans don't even fucking know they do that. Why do they do that? In part because they've got strong labor unions in Europe. Okay? And the mentality is cultural, where they understand things. In America, they've been brainwashed. Oh, well, this is free market. Oh, it's so the media plays a part in all this stuff. Eventually, Europe is going to not be that way anymore. I mean, they're whittling away at that, just like they are at the universal healthcare systems of the world. Every year, they're more closely resembling America in terms of the economic system. Every year, America is more closely resembling these liberal countries in terms of their social policies, you see? So there's a convergence that's been going on for quite a long time, whereby, the countries outside of America and the West are coming closer to America's economic system, right? And America's coming closer to their social system in terms of their policies, right? That's what's going on. Okay? It's been going on for a long time. So my point is that, yeah, that's why you have a wealth and income disparity. The people are getting fucked. But you see, the propaganda is, oh, it's a free market. You're just not qualified. You're just lazy. Well, in some cases, of course, yeah. But in many cases, it's not that way. Folks, open trade only benefits the wealthy. Okay? That's a fact. That's a fact. And it doesn't even benefit, I could argue, lower income countries, except for the wealthy. Let me give you a little story here. Okay? So typically what happens is you've got, let's say you've got American company going to India. Okay? They go to India. Let's say, Apple's going to India, right? The first thing that happens when these companies, they send facilities overseas to developing countries. The first thing, and you know why they send them overseas. They send them overseas because, well, take a look, FYI, take a look at a heat map, a pollution map. Where are the most polluted places on the earth? Asia. Asia. Why? Where's all the fucking outsourcing going? See, so corporate America gets to dump all their shit in Asia because the Western world has regulatory standards. So that's one reason. I wrote about this in my fucking book 20 years ago. It's unfair trade. Okay? So they can get rid of that. They don't have to worry about OSHA, all these environmental regulatory standards and costs, right? And of course the cheap labor, right? So Apple goes to India, and Indians that are working at Apple, they love it. They think they've hit the lotto, right? They think they're doing well now, okay? They're getting paid more than the typical Indian person. They've got a stable job, so on and so forth, okay? What happens is over time, other companies go, right? Eventually McDonald's will be big in India. You have more and more companies go to India. And I'm talking about India because India's not there yet, right? India's pretty closed. And you can look at countries like Thailand, you can look at Malaysia, you can look at even the Philippines, and you can see it's already happening. What's happening? I'll tell you here in a second. So we're looking at India because it hasn't happened yet. So as more companies, international companies, relocate to India to save money, well, you could say, well, the Indians are benefiting, right? It's lifting Indians out of poverty, is it not? Right? Sounds like it, right? Right? That's the argument they want to tell everybody, which, first of all, excuse me, I don't give a fuck about Indians. I'm American. Why are you sending my fucking jobs that were created by taxpayer money, right? Americans built that fucking company, Apple. through their intellect, their hard work, and they were educated in American universities, which are in part subsidized by U.S. fucking taxpayers. Boom, motherfucking boom! You don't hear that, do you? Why? You understand. But anyway, get back to the Indian argument. So what happens over time? Well, first of all, before we move on to time, the first thing these companies do, Apple included, when they go to India or any other country, is they make sure that the workers at Apple cannot engage in collective bargaining. They make sure, you ain't going to get it. There ain't no unions. You're not going to unionize. Okay? They make sure there's no fucking unions. Write that the fuck down. Okay? Now, as time moves on, you've got 20 years later, 30 years later, you got all these international companies in India, right? Built up India's economy at the expense of the Western world, right? All those jobs could have been in America, Europe, Canada, Australia, but they're in India. So what do you have in Canada, Australia, Europe, America? You've got lower living standards. You got people that aren't doing so well. They're moving on. They become drug addicts, right? They become gambling addicts. You understand. This is what's happened. So, what else do you get? In India, well, you think, oh gosh, you know, the Indian median income's improved. The living standards have improved. Free trade has lifted all these Indians out of poverty. Has it really? Wait a second. Let's take a step back. These are the same people who make these claims, by the way. These are the same economists who want to tell you that America didn't enter a depression due to the financial crisis. Why? They're going to tell you because we didn't hit 25% unemployment like we did during the Great Depression. Right? They're going to say because, well, you didn't have all these other things. Guess what? We didn't have Social Security, right, during the Great Depression. We have it now. We didn't have food stamps. You understand what I'm saying? You can't compare two periods that are completely different without making adjustments. Like, if you're doing that, there's something wrong with your fucking brain. Go back to school. Really. This time, a decent school at least. So you have to make adjustments for things. So when they talk about people being lifted out of poverty, they're not making adjustments. They're saying, okay, well, look, because, you know, the median income in India was $1,500, and now it's $3,000, you know, 20 years later or 10 years later, whatever, right? Okay, fine. But what's it take to live in India now? My point is that the more importation of these big companies that come into these developing countries, it raises inflation. It raises the cost of living, right? And so these people who you say were lifted out of poverty, oftentimes they're not. They're really not, because it's a lot more expensive. Understand, where do you think the people come from in these countries? All these fast-growing countries, what's the number one influence, the number one force of economic growth? The most powerful influence in economic growth of developing countries. Anybody know this? By the way, you're not going to get this anywhere in the world. Where are you going to get this? You're not going to get it anywhere. Go to your favorite Nobel Prize winner. They're fucking clowns. Okay? The most powerful driver of economic growth in developing countries is what? Urbanization. Okay? Urbanization. That's the biggest economic driver of China, biggest economic driver of India, biggest economic driver of Vietnam. These are three of the biggest, right? Philippines as well. What does that mean? That means you're getting people moving from the villages to the cities to get those jobs, right? That's where the growth comes from. All of a sudden, you're harnessing the productivity of people who are normally sitting on their ass doing nothing because they didn't need to do anything or much of anything. They're living on the farms, in the villages, right? All of a sudden, that's the productivity, okay? That's the biggest contributor to growth, at least for a period of time anyway. And this is why demographics is so important, right? Demographics, you hear about demographics all the time, right? The young labor force, right? Anything that can get more people in the labor force easily is going to give you good productivity, right? Whether it's people migrating from the villages to the cities to work, or people having a lot of babies. You see? Younger workforce. You're not really getting people escaping poverty that much. Yeah, extreme cases, of course. But for the most part, it's not, because the living costs increase over time. And guess what happens? In the early stages, it's okay. But later on, these corporations from the West, when living costs become higher, inflation, they're not going to give you those wage increases. Why do you think the first thing they do when they relocate overseas is make sure to prevent collective bargaining agreements? They don't want any labor unions. They don't want you to say shit. You can't do anything about it. Okay? So it looks good in the short phase, in the early phase. But later on, as living costs increase, these companies from overseas, from America, from Europe, they're not going to increase wages. Okay? And we saw the same thing in America. So you can go to some of these countries now, and you can probably you can probably support yourself working at McDonald's in some of these countries. And you might be laughing, saying, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Guess what? You could do the same in America 50 years ago. Okay? You could do the same in America 50 years ago. You can't do it anymore. Why? Folks, what did I say earlier? I talked about the majority of the productivity of the country goes where? It goes to the corporations. They're not giving an equal share of their productivity gains to the middle class. Over time, it has a cumulative impact. Adverse, of course. You understand? So you will see the same thing in these developing countries. You're seeing it right now in Thailand, by the way. Thailand's in a crisis, which people they're not even aware of. It's a big fucking problem over there. Thais are being left behind. Thailand, especially Bangkok, is so fucking commercialized now that Bangkok is no longer, don't go to Bangkok. Well, there's no reason to go to Bangkok anymore. There's no charm left. The street vendors are all illegally, it's illegal to be a street vendor, basically. You can't get anything off a cart. If you see one, they're paying the police to be on the street to sell fruit, and that means it's going to be a lot more expensive. They're forcing the street vendors to rent facilities in the buildings that are run by investors. So a lot of the charm in Bangkok is gone. And then the value proposition. Bangkok used to be a great value. You want to go to an international city. Now, forget it. It's not as expensive as Paris or London or New York or San Francisco, right? But it's rapidly on the way. It's on the way. Okay? And when you consider the city's fucking sinking, it's hot as fuck. They have open sewers in their rivers, shit like that. The standards are low. It's not a cultural mecca like you're getting in the West. When you adjust for things like that, the costs are a lot more expensive than you would imagine. Okay? And this is why they're having problems. This is why the government over there, which is so fucking incompetent, they're like little children. That's how it is in the developing world, folks. You have little children running these fucking countries in terms of their minds. Okay? The government in Thailand completely fucked. They fucked themselves up, and nobody even over there knows this. They don't even realize it. What happened? They started pushing Westerners out about 8-9 years ago, making visa requirements, long-term visa requirements more difficult. The whole idea, and this all happened after Rama IX died in 2016. Everything seemed to be going pretty fucking good. I don't know anything about their politics really, and I don't follow that shit or their king or anything like that. All I know is this: Rama IX, the king for like 70 years, everything seemed to be good. I didn't even realize it, but now you look at things, everything seemed to be going pretty fucking good. under him. And I don't think his son, Rama 10, I don't think it has anything to do with him. I don't think he's really involved as much. I think it's the people running the politics in Thailand. I think that's the issue. But, after 2016, you started to see these changes. So they wanted to push Westerners out, Western expats, make it more difficult for them. The whole idea was basically to bring more Chinese in. They were going to rely on the Chinese, which I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, you trust the Chinese? You better have eyes in the back of your fucking head. Okay? So, many things were happening if you're an observant person like I. And, giving Chinese 99-year land leases, giving them their own immigration line in Suvarnabhumi Airport, Bangkok Airport, things like that. And what happened? Well, the plan backfired. By the time a lot of Westerners were sick of the immigration, the treatment, some of the discriminatory behaviors and things said about Westerners by some of the immigration officials, a lot of Westerners weren't going there anymore. They weren't going as much. They weren't going to live there. They weren't going to retire there. They moved out. Some of them couldn't afford the requirements. They were pretty low, but, what happened? COVID hit, and that Chinese onslaught of tourism they were relying on didn't fucking happen. As a result, 5 years later, Thailand still hasn't recouped its pre-COVID numbers in tourism. And I knew this a long time ago. They always understated their reliance on tourism in Thailand. I remember seeing stupid numbers like 12% of their GDP. I knew that's fucking bullshit. At minimum, it's 20%. Minimum. And when you count other aspects, you could argue it's 40% of their GDP. In other words, what are other aspects? You got to understand, it's not just tourism. You're talking about people that visit there who end up moving there. They retire there, they become expats there, right? You got to understand, it's tourists that go there or expats that are there who buy their Thai girlfriend / wife / hooker a business. They buy her a massage parlor, they buy her a fucking condo, they buy her this, or you got guys sending their girlfriend / hooker money. They send them money every month. So that they're there for them when they go visit. These are mainly Europeans. Europeans are into this shit because Europeans get all these fucking holidays. They get on average 3 months out of the year or something like that. So they'll go, a lot of Australians too, but mostly Europeans are doing all this stuff. There's a lot of money going into Thailand from foreign hands, okay? I'm not even counting the illegal money, the dirty money. Basically, foreign money completely built the country of Thailand. No doubt about it. The question is how much of that money was dirty, how much of that money came from Asia versus the West. I don't know. Okay? But the point is that somebody over there changed things. They were changed after Rama 9 died. Okay? We know it wasn't Rama 9. And they wanted Westerners kind of out of the picture more so. Which is fine, okay, but replacing them with Chinese, I don't think that's a smart fucking move. So Chinese tourists didn't come in, Thai economy collapses, deep trouble, and what do? They legalize pot. Complete disaster. What do you get with that? You get a bunch of fucking losers going to Thailand. People that are going to be disrespectful, younger people, just fucking losers. Just not the same type of people, okay? Unfortunately, they finally woke the fuck up, and they're repealing that law now, okay? Which I called from day one as a disaster. Second thing, they made more easy long-term visas to bring in digital douchebags, digital fucking scammers. That's why all the Thailand content on ScamTube now is just stupid horse shit. Oh, it's paradise here. Oh, it's great here. Oh, cheap cost of living. Oh, 15 things to do. Just fucking grifters who got no fucking job. They're living off YouTube, creating bullshit, and what that's doing is creating more disinformation, bringing in more losers, which is feeding into the system, raising the prices. That's bringing all these passport bros and all this bullshit. I mean, Thailand's completely fucking ruined as far as I'm concerned. And I believe the government has ruined it. Okay? They did it. They're that desperate, they're making all these stupid moves. Now, getting back to the Thais, the typical Thai is neck deep in debt. They're neck fucking deep in debt. It's clear to me that the Thai banking system is in bed with Wall Street. No doubt about it. And you're talking to the only guy who truly predicted the financial crisis. I'm the guy that wrote in a book for the layperson. I explained the securitization process, how you take mortgages and turn them into tradable securities, into mortgage-backed securities, and how derivatives are created from that. I wrote about that. So I probably know what's going on in the banking system in Thailand. Okay? And what's going on is that there's no way, and I saw this there fucking 8 years ago, flooding the consumers with credit, giving them 0% loans to buy a fucking Ford truck. Okay? 1% loans. Shit like that. The same hook, line, and sinker they give to Americans to get them trapped into debt. So if you're giving all these Thai people cheap access to loans to buy cars and trucks and all these other things, and most of the debt in Thailand, the consumer debt, is tied to cars and probably houses, but I'd say there's a huge amount on cars. If you're doing that, if you're giving all this consumer credit, do you think that a closed economic system in a developing country like Thailand can sustain a recession? Of course fucking not. They will completely implode. Their banking system will fail. So it's clear to me, I saw that there's no way the Thai banking system is throwing out all this credit for people unless they're repackaging it and selling it working with Wall Street to basically, Wall Street selling their credit. I guarantee you. Wall Street is packaging asset-backed securities, mortgage-backed securities from Thailand on the international institutional markets. Guaranteed. It's been going on for a while now. So what's that mean to you? Well, it's going to pension plans. Okay? I'll stake my life on it. I know for a fact this is happening. There's no fucking way they can dish out all this credit and not blow up during a recession, because they're not holding the loans. You understand? They're not holding that debt for the most part. Some of it, of course. Okay, so they're in trouble. Anyway. I mean, you're not going to get this analysis anywhere else, folks. Nobody else knows this, what I just told you. Nobody, guaranteed. If you can find this anywhere else, I'll give you $1 million fucking dollars. $1 million. That's how much I know nobody knows about it. I mean, who do you think you're dealing with here? You're dealing with some fucking putz? I'm the big swinging fucking dick. Folks, the absolute truth from someone who's very credible, high level, the absolute truth, pulling no punches, is never going to be heard. It's never going to be, they don't want to air that. You see, there's always got to be a spin. Why? Because if you're telling the full truth and you have a lot of expertise and credibility, it's not going to bode well for the person who wants to feature you. How are they going to make money? How are they going to make money? Who do you think funds those people? You understand? It's advertisement-based content, folks. That's why it's a scam. Advertisement-based content's a fucking scam. It's that simple. When money is connected to it, it's fucked. It's not credible. The best thing you can do in your life is to learn my track record. I mean, you're limited, right? I mean, you can't really fully learn my full research track record because much of that is hidden. I'm not going to give that away for free. Especially this day and age when you've got these fake gurus who are going to like copy my shit. No fucking way. No fucking way. No. So, but what you can do is you can focus on my financial crisis track record. It's right there. Okay? you can focus on that. And the more you understand about that track record, of course, you're going to have to understand what went on. And then you have AI now, right? You have AI, and you can understand who was credited with the financial crisis, right? Predicting the financial crisis. But and find out from AI, what exactly did they say? What did they write? Was it private? What were their specific forecasts? Did they give actionable investment guidance? Was it accurate, profitable, right? When did they say these things? You understand? When you go through all that, you'll realize I'm number one. Nobody even comes close to me. If somebody came close, I'd tell you. Nobody even is in the same universe. Okay? Nobody. There were too many things that I covered that nobody else covered. Too many things. It wasn't just my Fannie Freddie financial crisis, banking crisis. It wasn't just that. It was my Dow 6,500. Nailed that, right? And reiterated that, confirmed that on the exact day that it hit that, and told people to start buying for the first time. It's on. The more you learn about me and that track record, and then you see what happened to me, right? And then, if you read the book, you'll understand more about the trade and all these things I wrote about, and you'll see how I've uncovered America. And it's not just America. I mean, if this is America, we're talking about the West. Eventually, all of the Western world is going to some degree, I think to a large degree, their healthcare system is going to resemble America's healthcare system down the road. Okay? To a large degree, down the road, corporate America is going to resemble the corporate structure in the rest of the Western world. I mean, it already does to some extent. You understand? So, understanding my track record and what I wrote about in that book 20 years ago, and looking what's happened, okay, and then understanding I was given no credit for anything, and then going through the analysis, reading my AI analysis, doing your own, then you'll see nobody has higher credibility than me. I'm right up there with the highest people. That's fact. And then ask yourself, okay, why is he banned? Why is he still banned today, right? And then you'll understand that the whole system is complete shit. If you're going out there looking for the truth, you're not going to get it. You're going to think you're getting it, and you may be fooled for a while, and it may take you many years. Like kind of how people, a lot of people, it takes them like several years to realize Alex Jones is a fraud. Or some people don't even realize it still, right? I mean, he's kind of like a low level. There's people that are much higher level than him that you never realize they're a fraud. You see? But that's why I give you all the golden rules. I mean, you can figure it out. Look who they're hanging out with. It's all a bunch of fucking circle jerks, right? They're being promoted, right? WikiLeaks is legit. Julian Assange is legit. I mean, it's not legit simply for the fact that the media promotes WikiLeaks. Like, why would they promote WikiLeaks? Right? They're doing it for a reason. It's controlled opposition. WikiLeaks is a fucking fraud. I even submitted things on my own, never heard from them on the financial crisis. It's a complete fraud, complete bullshit. But most people don't realize that. If you look at the things, most of the stuff is public already. It's a complete fraud. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Right? But it gets exposure. That tells you right there. All you need is basic knowledge. If they're getting exposure, forget it. Forget it. Right? Think about it. WikiLeaks is so evil. Right? Governments hate them. And the media's interviewing them. Why isn't the media interviewing me? Because I stand for the people. You see? I really stand for the people. They don't want people to be empowered and to know what's going on. Because if enough people knew what I know, there'd be riots in the fucking streets. There'd be a real fucking stampede in Washington. That's not something that I knew 20 years ago. That's just something that I've come to realize. You see? I just was doing what I thought needed to be done. Be honest, give a good analysis, help people. That's it. That was it. You see? Over time, I see what's going on now. I see why. And of course, if I were of the right tribe, I'd be promoted. I'd get enough promotion to make me a nice amount of money. No doubt. I'm just telling you, folks, there is not a single source out there that's legit on anything. Now you can tell me, oh no, just like the people think, oh no, but I can no day trading. This guy's good. I don't care to hear. You keep your opinions to yourselves. I know the fucking deal. I don't need to be told I'm wrong because I'm not fucking wrong. Okay. You see? That's the unfortunate reality. And I learned that over time, by the way. I learned that over time. I looked for people, I thought, oh, okay. And then you realize, no. And then people tell me, there have been many people over the years, by the way, who have written to us, who have emailed us and said, oh yeah, we told, we reached out to this person that says they should interview you. I hear nothing. Nothing. Because this, they thought that this person was like on board with, exposing things. And this tells you right there, folks. This tells you they're all fucking frauds and liars. Controlled opposition. The whole mechanism is control. Okay. I mean, in my experience, and I'm looking more than anybody else out there. I've never seen anybody. And you got to have a lot of expertise to know what's going on. I'm telling you, they're all frauds. There's not a single person out there that is, coming out with things you think that, oh yeah, he's exposing this. It's bullshit. It's all to make money. It's all, remember, folks, I'm talking right now about things that have nothing to do with making me money. I've devoted a lot of my life and effort to informing people for no reason simply other than to inform them what's going on, right? I haven't had any fundraisers. I don't ask for donations, right? Support the cause. You understand? That's the unfortunate, sad reality. And now it's impossible for people to know what's going on. Because the reality is that you have levers of control that run all these so-called open platforms. And they decide who gets the exposure. Okay? You understand? I mean, you do know, of course, the people that get the exposure, the people that get seen, that get the most eyeballs on them, are the ones that are hitting the algorithms the most. Right? You do realize that. And those things are controlled. You see? Ask yourself the question, how many people that get a lot of exposure, that reach a lot of eyes and ears today, talking about critical issues, how many of them on a percentage scale are true experts in their field? Now, I'm not talking about an occasional person they may bring on, but even then, almost always they're not legit. I can tell you that. And I say not legit in terms of maybe they superficially look like they have sufficient credentials, but then you look closely and they have a bias because they have a book to sell or something like that. I can tell you almost never, almost nobody. Now, when you're talking about on a regular basis, there's nobody. Name to me one person out there who's got exposure, a good amount of exposure, who's a true expert in things that they talk about. Name one person. One person. Well, I shouldn't die forgotten. That's what is up to you guys. Because it's not about even me. It's about what happened to me that explains what's going on. That's the point. That's the problem. That's the issue. That's why it's important to know about me and my story so that people can understand what's going on in the whole control mechanism. That's the deal. Can anybody name anybody? Name anybody. Anybody out there? And I'm gonna have to go now. I don't know of anybody. I mean, think about the people that are hitting all the I's and the ears. They're just rambling fucking idiots with their own agendas, right? Now, some of these people are positioned as credible experts, but they're frauds. Look into them. All you got to do, a good example, if you want to see like many case studies of this, just look at Joe Rogan on his channel. All these guys he promotes. Oh, well, he's a professor at Stanford. Andrew Huberman, a complete fraud, a fucking scam artist. In fact, I looked into this guy very briefly. I seriously think there's something not right with this guy based upon his academics. He studied, like, I don't know, psychology, and then all of a sudden he jumps into neuroscience, PhD, or something weird. Something's off about this guy. And don't think, by the way, because you look at Lex Friedman. I talked about this guy. Something is wrong. Something's off about this guy. I think you're talking here, and probably this Huberman, there's probably some Mossad thing going on. You know Mossad's got agents all over the fucking country, right? I talked about how Friedman, he seems like an idiot. He doesn't seem too smart at all. And in fact, I mean, he seems like an idiot. Let's be clear. He seems like a fucking idiot. And why would he go and study at a school that his dad was teaching at? The same department, unless it was a great school. And Drexel ain't no fucking great school. It's fucking dog shit. It's embarrassing. You understand? So, So if you want to see an example, because Joe Rogan's trying to make himself like credible. Friedman is too. Take a look at their channels and see, oh, well, he's a professor. Take a close look and see what they're involved in. And you'll see they're fucking scammers. In some cases, maybe they're not scammers yet. Take a look 6 months later. They'll be into the scamming business. Invariably, take a look. I already know the deal. You see, it's the same thing with Joe Rogan that promoted all this anti-vaxxer. This what's his name, John Malone. Oh, well, he's a professor and he created the mRNA technology. No, he didn't. The guy's a fucking lunatic and a fraud. But you all don't know that because you don't have the background. 80% of what he says is true. 20% is complete horseshit. Just like someone says, oh, well, Kerry Mullis, he also said, Kerry Mullis was he was LSD man. All Kerry Mullis did was accidentally discover an enzyme in the laboratory. That's it. Doesn't make him an expert in PCR. Doesn't make him an expert in these COVID tests. He doesn't understand the commercial aspects. He came out, as you all, maybe some of you all don't know. I think he's the guy that came out and said basically you can't, the COVID tests are invalid. That you can't test for COVID with the PCR, the polymerase chain reaction. You can't do it. You're going to create a lot of false positives. I think that's pretty much what he said. Right? He just said that to fucking get in the limelight, okay? But a normal person's going to say, wait a second, he won a Nobel Prize. Kerry Mullis won a Nobel Prize in biochemistry for discovering one of the most important tools that we use in biotechnology, right? It enabled us to clone the human genome. Basically an enzyme that enables you to very rapidly multiply genetic replication. So, and that's of course used for, these, it's used for crime scenes. It's used for all these things. You get someone's hair and you can get their DNA. Just like the vaccine, the COVID tests, they use that. So you figure, well, like he's the guy that discovered it. So naturally, you're going to assume that if he says this, it must be true. No. He has no fucking idea what he's talking about. He's just making up horse shit. Okay? I have an extensive background in the field. And I'm telling you, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's complete unsubstantiated horse shit. Okay? But the anti-vaxxers want to believe him. Same thing with John Malone. John Malone is not the creator of mRNA vaccines. It's a complete lie. Okay? He did some research on mRNA, a long time ago. So what? He's another fucking profiteer. Kerry Mullis just wanted to be in the limelight. That's all. He wanted significance. Just like Steve Wozniak, right? This guy, he wants to seem significant. He makes up a lot of bullshit. I mean, some things he says is okay, but sometimes he just comes out because he wants to be significant. He wants to be seen as significant, which of course for him, the more exposure he gets, he can charge for speaking fees. So, that's the thing, folks. I mean, you don't have. This is the problem. That's what I'm saying. All these motherfuckers. I mean, who can go up against me and win if they're a scammer, if they're not honest, if they're trying to deceive? Nobody. Bring them. Nobody. I'm the fucking king. Because you know what? Been doing it a long time, and I got the fucking expertise. And I've already been through the grinder. I got nothing to fucking lose. I've already been through the fucking grind. What do I got to lose? Nothing. I've already been banned, right? Career minimized, right? Everything. Got nothing to fucking lose. Okay? Intelligent people realize these guys are all frauds, right? But asking for intelligence these days is a difficult task. You're asking for a lot. That's the reality. Most of the intelligent people are actually the ones leading the sheep to the slaughterhouse. They're the ones that are the scammers. Okay? That's the reality. That's the sad reality. They're intelligent enough to know how to dupe people. You see? Not all, of course. You got a lot of airheads and dummies as well. But I'm just telling you, folks, I'm telling you once again, everything out there, you're not getting the truth. You're getting bits and pieces. You're getting cherry-picked stuff. You're getting agenda-ridden bullshit. You're getting biased things. You're getting things that are convenient at the time for that person or that company they're representing. You're not getting a consistent reporting analysis of what's going on. That's just the sad reality. And it's unfortunate. And it's not going to ever improve. So, all right, folks, I got to go. I encourage you all to look at this information, to read these chapters, to analyze it, what it really meant. Okay? It's very difficult unless you live through this to really understand the relevance of this research. But just, I guess the easiest way to understand the relevance is that nobody else in the world published these forecasts, this analysis. Nobody. Go through all these people and see what they published, what they wrote about. It was horseshit, just random vague things, okay? I'm the guy that came out and put my fucking reputation on the line, and I came out with specific forecasts. Peak to trough collapse in residential real estate prices, nailed it, right? Number of foreclosures over a certain time period, nailed it. The losses from certain things, I nailed it. Collapse of the GSEs, Fannie and Freddie, resulting in a government taxpayer bailout, nailed it. Dow 6500, nailed it. I nailed so many things, right? Nobody would ever do this. Nobody's going to do this. Think about it. Because, that's who I am. I don't flap my mouth. When I come out and say something, if I don't have a high confidence level, I'm going to tell you, well, I'm not so sure about this. If I come out and put something in print like that, like what I did, obviously I know what the fuck's going on. And the sad reality, the disgusting reality, is that there are people out there, there are institutions and institutional professionals who know about me and who read my books, and they're unwilling to say anything because they're bitches. They're cowardly. This is one reason why I'm going to really, for the most part, I'm pretty much going to shut down even advising, helping institutions.